I can only see me, but that's okay. So again, this is welcome to week 5 of ADHD Awareness Month. We have a great lineup the rest of this week. So today we're going to be talking about money and all things ADHD and money and all the drama that comes along with it. And then tomorrow, I believe we have somebody coming in to talk about resume writing, like ADHD friendly resume writing. Then on Wednesday, we're going to be talking about autism and ADHD. And then our final day, we're going to be doing some nervous regulation exercises. So I hope that you stay tuned for the entire week. And then all of the replays and stuff will be, I know I keep saying this, but I promise I am working on it. Getting these replays up. It takes time, y'all. And you know, it's taxing my executive functions right now, but we are going to be doing this because I want to make sure that everybody has this content. But again, Tenita, we are thankful that you are here. I'm going to ask that you introduce yourself. And again, we're talking about ADHD and money. I'm going to put that in the chat so people know what the topic is. But do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure, no problem. So as you said, I am Tenita Abraham, also known as Joy or Joyful in some arenas. And I am here, thankfully to you, after a conversation we had about ADHD and finance. So just a little bit, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Yes. So the way I found out I had ADHD was actually at work, through another financial advisor. After going through some challenges, we're trying to pass the test, another certification for my industry. Nothing that I had issues with before, but I was also going through the transition of making a decision of whether or not to move my father in with me, who had dementia. So that new job, son in high school, all at the same time, no matter how much I knew every answer on that exam, I missed it by 3 points. I missed it by 2 points. It was one of those situations. And a friend of mine pulled me aside, thank goodness, and was like, you know this stuff, you train half of us. And I was like, but I don't know what it is. Long story short, he walked me through, sent me some articles to convince me that I had ADHD, and actually took his advice, used his medicine to take the test. That time I knocked it out. It was ridiculous. I knocked it out the box, and then eventually went to get tested, and my mind was blown.
Yeah.
My mind was blown. I never would have thought. You normally think ADHD, you think people who, when we were growing up, it's the kids that were, this kid and, couldn't focus or always being interrupted, things like that. But it's a lot deeper than that. And I'm still learning.
It is. How long have you been working in finance or just money?
99. So what's that? 25 years. Yeah.
Since 1999? That was a long time ago.
Yes.
Yes.
I just told my age. Yes.
I know. So thank you again for joining us. And thank you for sharing your story, because I think that's important. I think it's important for people to recognize that there's ADHDs in all different industries. And although sometimes, we're navigating a world that is not designed for us, when we're able to figure it out and to get some different strategies and access tools and really better understand our own brains, we're really able to do anything. And so she's been in the finance world for, 2 decades. And so we thank you for that commitment. But, now that you have a better understanding of your ADHD and you go back and reflecting on your own journey in that particular career, what did you notice?
For me, when I first took the exam, which is a lot of different things, I kind of go into what I would have done differently. but when I first took the exam, I'm still on the exam. When I first took the test to find out about it, I want to say I accepted it, but I don't think I accepted it like I normally would accept a diagnosis. I won't say condition, but diagnosis, because I still, in my mind, didn't feel like I was that kid. I was just stressed or something like that, which does have a huge, you're the coach. It has a huge impact on what's going to trigger ADHD to get to certain levels. But I think the biggest eye opener for me was coming into the age that I am now and actually seeing the full of it taking a toll on my life in the last few years. And that's kind of the biggest thing for me. I think there's a lot of people out there who probably still have ADHD, and it's almost like a catchphrase these days. Like, oh, I got my kid with ADHD, right?
I know, but it's really annoying because it's a serious challenge that people are experiencing, and having those challenges with certain executive functions when it comes to planning and organizing and prioritizing, and people just kind of throw it out there as though it doesn't mean anything. And it's not true, right? And so I'm glad that we're having these conversations this month, and I'm glad that we're able to really dig deep into some of the challenges, but also some of the success stories as well through this entire month. But it sounds like, your journey and fully understanding in your brain and how ADHD is impacting you is just starting. Yes.
I would say I would say being able to reflect on the last few years after, another huge transition. My father passed. And thank you. And then realizing that's the point where I got oh my God, the pile of clothes over there, I can't do it. Where before I couldn't stand the pile of clothes being there, and everyone thought I had OCD. I'm pretty sure I do, but now it's kind of the pile up of life taking on ADHD is just two different battles that wrap itself. So that led me to actually talking to more people. Of course, thank goodness for Facebook, Meta, whatever we are now. Actually pushing groups, because then I started seeing like, oh, this is the thing, and this is the thing, and this is the thing. Where before, being what, most people say we're fixers, because we have that mind that's always trying to fix either ourselves or somebody else or something. But turning it into realizing that could be taxing on ourselves as well. Was the biggest thing.
Yeah. Okay, let's dig deep into these money challenges. And so some of the challenges that come with ADHD and money is like the first and foremost thing that pops into my head is the ADHD tax.
Yes.
And for those that are listening and don't know what the ADHD tax is, it's essentially all this extra money that we spend because we're either losing things and we have to be replaced, or we are not being careful and things are breaking and they have to be replaced, or you're somebody like me and buys multiple things because I know that I'm going to lose them. Like, for example, these headphones, because I refuse to use the earbuds because I know I'm going to lose them. And I have about 7 pairs of headphones in my house somewhere, and then I just pick up the ones that I can find.
Right.
And so you just end up spending all this extra money on things. Also, forgetting to pay bills on time and then having to pay the fees, or what is the other things, that all of the random things that we end up paying for as a result of some executive function challenges. We end up spending all this extra money.
Yeah.
Right. And so because of that, taxes is another one, like paying taxes late or like forgetting to do taxes and having to pay the penalty fees, like all of these things, and trying to keep track of our spending. We're also spend extra money because we're impulsively spending things like in money that we don't have, and because we want it at that given time, or think about all the extra hobbies that we have. And then once we have this new discovery that we're interested in something, we buy everything that's related to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 months later, we're not using it anymore.
Right.
And so money can be a real issue within the ADHD community if you're not paying attention to it. And so we have a financial advisor here. Yes, people are co-signing the taxes challenge. Oh yes, and Dr. Shauna too, changing jobs because of our passions and interests change, right? And so that can impact our income. Like in some ways, we may have to take a pay cut. Some days we may not. Like if we're losing a job too, and then we have to live off of savings for a little bit. If we get fired from a position, or we impulsively quit and not thinking about the money that is going to cost for us to live. And then sometimes also just thinking about just being an adult, like all the adulting things, right? Just grocery shop, like everything, all the adulting things that you just have to do. And then sometimes like we're not necessarily taking the time to really do the research to find the most affordable way, so that we may spend the money on the easiest thing, so that we don't have to deal with it anymore. So there's a lot of ways in which we get impacted by spending and spending more than we really need to, as a result of some executive function challenges that we're experiencing.
Exactly.
And so in your research, as like, when we first started thinking about this topic, when we were going to talk about it, if you think about budgeting, what are some ways that we could be budgeting better, like keeping our ADHD in mind?
I think because, and this is just the financial aspect of it, even over and above the ADHD part, the delicacy when it comes to, I said delicacy, I'm hungry. Delicateness when it comes to ADHD is that, when it comes to finance, is that it is already one of those things that are kind of, especially for our generation, maybe a couple before, it's not talked about, it's not kind of trained and things like that, but it does control everything that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I would say, anytime you're not doing this or not getting where you want to be as far as your finances, or you didn't get this done, you didn't get that done, you're not alone. It is part of, that is part of your ADHD, but I would still say that is the average person that's doing it on their own, especially. Most couples only have one person in the out of the two that handle the finances.
Mm-hmm.
If you're by yourself, or you take care of someone else, you're still that one person. So it's a lot deeper than that. I think the difference with ADHD is there's a little more detail that has to go into sticking to the plan than the average person.
Yeah, because one of it's like remembering the plan.
Right. For me, when I kind of took all of that in, and thought about my way of doing things, I feel like everything I do, when I was kind of better, I was very anal about having things around that says this. Like I'm a post-it. I got post-it notes. I got. I'm like, I'm still like that kid that writes on the wall, probably if I could. But those constant reminders. I don't have one alarm in the morning. I have 4.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the reminders and things to take a break. Be and try to stay mindful when you're doing pretty much everything when it comes to finance.
Yeah. One of the things that just came up for me when you were talking about that was,
take it out.
Yeah, so I would agree that like money challenges and budgeting, I feel like is just a universal problem across the board. And like as a society, we definitely are bombarded with a lot of messages that's like buy me, buy me, buy me. And all of these images, and stores like know about all of this, right? Like, so they do this, they target certain, like there's a lot of people, they get targeted, right? And so like there's a lot of hidden messages, and the world is convincing you to pay to buy more. Like we live in a consumer
Yeah.
world, right? I think some of the challenges though is that we also have we're experiencing some emotional dysregulation. So there's like some guilt and shame that can come with not being able to buy stuff or actually buying stuff.
Right.
Um, and how it impacts your budget. And so, and that's one thing. But then the other thing that reminds me is like, I feel like when my finances were the best is when I was like really hyper focused
Mm-hmm.
on my money and on my finances and checking religiously. Right. And so, um, along the process, like I was like, I'm going to get, like, I was in the middle of buying a house. And so that was my hyper focus at the time. And so thinking about, you know, I don't think money is something that you can't not think about.
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's people from Zanzibar. Hi,
Awesome.
Zanzibar and Tanzania. Oh, nice. Um, so it's something that you can't not think about. And so this is an area, if you're going, like if you have a goal to really get to a certain place when it comes to your finances, like it kind of needs you to be your next hyper focus.
Exactly. And that's my thing. I just did a presentation about 2 weeks ago when it came to investing for people in the healthcare industry
Mm-hmm.
and finance. And that was the thing then. My best friend is a nurse, and she, has ADHD and told me more about it and things like that. So it's something that's not normally talked about as much, but so many more people have it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just kind of managing the behavior.
Yeah.
Write it down as much as you can. If you have a routine that you do every day that doesn't change, even if it's the first thing you do when you get up in the morning, you go to the bathroom, you know what I mean? That somewhere in there on the bathroom mirror, if you had something that needs to be done, kind of have that post up there to kind of remind you, hey, make sure today you pay this bill. But
Yeah.
more than anything, my thing is automation.
I was just going to say that, like having your bills come out of your account automatically, but not just the bills either, but checks, like having them deposited automatically, having,
Mm-hmm.
what was really helpful for me, and I don't know if you recommend this as a financial advisor, but just having multiple accounts. So there was
Yes.
one
Yep.
account that, I would deposit all of the money that was going to pay all of the bills that were going to come out of that account. And so like separating my money and having different purposes for the different accounts
Yes.
helped. Somebody had asked if there was budgeting tools that you recommended.
Um, there's a few. Actually, I have one in my phone. I was trying to pull up earlier. There are a few, but I can't say that I have one that I would say I like more than the other, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Um,
same.
Simply because they're very generic. I can't say that from the ones that I was looking at, that there was one that said that did things to kind of train your mind along when you're triggered in ADHD. That
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. Um, but and when it comes to kind of staying on top of things, when it in the beginning I had like SoFi, because you can kind of set goals.
Which one is that called? What is that called?
SoFi, SOFI.
SoFi. That's an app.
That is an app. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it is a bank. It's you can set it up, deposit, automate your deposits and everything like that too. The biggest thing I've always told people, like you said, is to separate your accounts. I say the same thing with not just with your regular savings to take care of expenses, but also with your investments. You should have an investment account for different things. If you're saving for something long term that is you need
Yeah.
to buy a house, you have that separate than obviously your retirement account, things like that. Do the same thing with your bank and have multiple banks
Mm-hmm.
where you have different accounts. So that's always going to help, one with automation,
Mm-hmm.
um, two, with sticking to the purpose for those, wherever those funds are kind of going to.
Yeah, and the reality is like we have some working memory challenges anyway, right? And so
Right.
it's almost using the working memory challenge to your favor in this particular context, because like let it be out of sight, out of mind, and um, have like some of your savings like automatically transferred into what it is that you're looking to save for. Like if you're working for like to try to save money for a house or save money for a car. Same thing with paying off credit card bills, like being able to really just have that stuff automated so that it is out of sight, out of mind, so that you can pay off some debt or reach a particular finance goal. Now, when it comes to investing, I feel like when investing, like if you have access to like the other thing is, sorry, I feel like I'm all over the place in this particular statement. When you're thinking about all of the things that are required in order to manage your money appropriately in this particular world that we live in, right? And not just save money, but like really build wealth.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much that you can get into. There's so much that you can learn, and then you can go down a rabbit hole, or it can just be really overwhelming, right? And so I would always recommend, if you have access to a financial advisor, to let that financial advisor do the digging for you so that you can have the time and the energy and not get so overwhelmed or so dysregulated trying to remember it all, because it's a lot. Like I have a financial advisor, and it's so much easier to just say, hey, can you help me answer this question? Or can you figure this out for me, versus trying to go down a rabbit hole.
Exactly. And if you think about it, that way, like I said, one of the things that first got me to look into it deeper was, I think, and this was back in 2014, there was an article that said about 70% of financial advisors are undiagnosed ADHDers.
Really?
Yes. I could not find it, but that's what he showed me to be like, okay, let me look at it. And if you
That's so interesting.
Mm-hmm. But if you think about it, the one thing about people with ADHD is the one thing that they feel they have that control over. The one or two things they feel they have that control over is the thing that they're best at. So, like, some of the things of some of the characteristics of people with ADHD, they want the high intensity. They usually do better in high intensity jobs. They can't be bored. They don't want to kind of have to do something that's repetitive all the time. It's just something you throw yourself into. But as a trader or a financial advisor or financial person, a numbers person, you think in numbers anyway. So you have to be a little more creative in how it works for you. So that's why the best person to go to is your financial advisor, because if you don't look at your finances that way, they're the person that's going to do more of the deep diving once you present a problem they need to solve.
Yeah, and the other thing about having a financial advisor too is that they're not emotionally attached to the money the way that you are. Absolutely. And so as the person that is like just has drama with money, right? Like there's a lot of guilt and there's a lot of shame that comes along with managing your finances. Mm-hmm. Because it means so much, like there's so much weight that is put on money, especially in this country or this culture. Yeah. And it's like, it signifies your status. Like it signifies like whether or not you're able to enjoy an event or not to enjoy an event, to be able to, like, and it distinguishes like what schools that you go to, what childcare programs that you have access to. And so there's just a lot of emotionally heavy thoughts and like drama that comes along with money.
Yeah.
And so the having somebody else be able to take that deep dive into your finances, and not have like the guilt of, oh my God, I spent too much money last week on like shoes, or like I spent too much money on this. And like you don't have to deal with that drama anymore, because somebody else is doing that deep dive for you. Right. and then be able to give you some solutions and like be able to strategize, where it's going to be difficult for you to really step aside like first you're going to have to deal with that, like being emotionally dysregulated. And then once you deal with the drama that you're experiencing with money and whatever shame that you may be experiencing, then you can get there. But while you're trying to do all that, like in the meantime, you could be working with a financial advisor, and then that advisor can take the deep dive for you, tell you what to do, tell you when to file your taxes. You can set, and you can just set the alarms, and like you can put in the strategies to execute and allow somebody else to strategize.
Right. So one thing I recently added to, and this is a testament of just me being in my situation in the last couple of years of, not being able to walk and things like that, and knee surgery, is sitting and think about things differently. But the one thing that I realized is doing the work that I did for so long and getting that discipline down to the point where you forget about it, that helped me through the last couple of years. So how can I figure out different ways to get other people to get in that mindset of pushing it over here and forgetting it and things like that, so they can kind of keep going. So when everything hits the fan, you have some things to fall back on for a little while at least. Because we always told people to save for 6 months of emergency fund.
Yeah.
COVID killed that. That's what I was telling everybody back in COVID. COVID killed that, because how long did we deal with it was more than 6 months that we dealt with that. So, and then with, the way everything is too, you never know how long you'll even be in a situation of, your company kicking in your benefits to take care of whatever you need. So all that plays a part. But anything that I say, one thing that I going back to what I was saying earlier, when it comes to the best time and the best way to tackle anything you're doing with finances, it's first thing in the morning.
Okay.
First thing in the morning. Why? Because at that point, you wake up in the morning, you usually kind of take a deep breath. Like I said, go to the bathroom, kind of your mind is a little more calm. You haven't gotten to the point of all the challenges and to do things for the day.
Yeah.
But if someone has given you a strategy or a list or something like that to keep you on track, then first thing in the morning, you get up, you do, your meditation, your prayer, your things like that, and you're already at that moment.
Woosah space.
Right. Then you can go in and say, okay, my alarm at 8:00 says pay this bill, do, and I'm done. Then that's off of your list for the rest of the day. Wait until the end of the day when you've gone through chasing kids and transporting kids and this person at work and that person at work, you're done. And that's even from a financial advisor standpoint. For me, trading in the morning, when I used to just teach people how to trade, for me, trading in the morning was so much easier than trying to go through all the other things. And then later in the afternoon, it's just easier to kind of get it done when your mind is more open. And now you're not thinking so much about all the other things, even the why behind it, but you're getting it done and getting it out the way. And then you also have a sense of accomplishment early in the day to get through the rest of the day.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing you really say is that you need to pay attention to your money.
Oh, absolutely. Because that is the first thing. My friends used to pick at me because, like, the thing where a lot of people say, "Ooh, my Amazon cart has like 500 things sitting in it." Okay, but that's because you knew that was a want, not a need.
I like that. So, when it comes to spending, it's really understanding like what is a want and what is a need, and having very clear definitions for those terms. And everybody's want, everybody's need is going to be different.
Absolutely.
And so, like, do you, as an ADHDer, have a clear understanding of your wants versus your needs? And is that not a roadmap, but or a strategy, or just a question that you can ask yourself before you start spending?
Yeah.
Especially if you're looking to reach a particular financial goal, right? And so, for those that are blessed with just a really big pot of money where they don't really have to worry about these things, then that's great. But that's not me. And so,
That's not
and so, you know, really being clear about what is it like. When I went to Costco today, I definitely put some things back, but there's probably, now that I'm sitting here reflecting on it, there's probably a couple things that I could have additional things that I could have put back. Um, yeah, it's money can be really challenging to worry about, but it's one of those things where you need to kind of take a deep dive into, so that you're actually paying attention to it. And so I feel like, just going back to the question around budget tools, there are different apps that you can use.
yeah.
I
I
feel like
kept trying.
I haven't been satisfied with really any of them, because, you know, I think what's challenging about tracking your finances, this is the same thing with, like, you know, those fitness apps where you kind of track your food. With ADHD, it can just be difficult. It can be difficult to remember to do those things.
Right.
And then, you know, I would argue that it's going to be really important for you to build some habits around that. And that's like that could look like gamifying it. It could be looking like attaching the task to another habit that you already have down packed.
Yeah.
It's developing a really clear reward system for doing it. And so it's really thinking outside of the box to create a habit around your spending. And it takes a lot of work, and so it requires a lot of executive functions. It takes a lot of work, and it can be exhausting. And I'm here to acknowledge that dealing with money is hard.
Right.
If you
And
have
if
ADHD.
financial advisors have the same, trust me, we know.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
It's hard. And then if you have kids, and then there's like, the other thing is, when you have kids, then there's birthday parties, and there's other birthday parties, and there's all these events, and then the schools want you to buy like all the supplies. And so it's budget. It's also making sure that you're budgeting around all of the things that happen in life, that you don't necessarily think about at top of the mind, but there's a lot of sneaky expenses that come in. So it's not just like your utilities. It's that random kid's birthday party from your class, and, you know, making some hard decisions about what that gift is going to look like.
And most importantly, knowing to tell getting your child to understand no
Mm-hmm.
at a young age. You know, okay, we have enough money set aside for 2 birthdays for the month.
Mm-hmm.
Once we hit 2 at this amount of money, then we can't do any more. So
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I have always had a hard time sticking to a budget every month.
Mm-hmm.
What are some techniques that I can use in order to stick to a budget?
Visualize what you would accomplish from sticking to that budget.
Okay.
That's why I said kind of each portion of a budget. So a lot of people think of a budget as just one thing for everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you separate your budget, don't even call it a budget so much. You just say a goal for this money, a goal for that amount of money. So if you have a check and your take-home pay is $500,
mm-hmm.
you know that your rent is $100. You know that this is another $100. That's going to take care of household. So the remaining $200 to $300 go somewhere else that's not your everyday. You don't even have a debit card attached to it.
Yeah. Oh, that's good too. Yeah, I definitely have done that too. Like having a bank account.
The debit card killed us.
Yeah, having a bank account that you don't have real access to.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then, so once those things are set aside that take more energy to get to, or more work, I would say, to get to, those things over there are the ones that'll be it'll be easier to kind of get into the habit of being like, okay, no, that's for this, that's for that. That's why it's over there. Where if it's right here in your regular everyday account, then, especially if you're in a moment, an emotional state or something like that, where you're like, I want to go out. Like I just saw someone say, it's $100 at the house. I just said that because now that I'm in the Atlanta area, it's $100 just to go. I feel like it's $100 to go downtown just to get something I can get up the street from Chick-fil-A. But yes, just that. And I try not to leave the house when I'm kind of in those moments where I know that my ADHD is more triggered.
Mm-hmm.
I just went to the grocery store, physically went to the grocery store 2 weeks ago for the first time in months.
Mm-hmm.
And that's simply because I got into Instacart and DoorDash. And
Yeah.
it's easier to stick to, I need this, and this when somebody else is doing it. And if they don't get it right, then it's done. You
Yeah.
make up
And
for it.
I think that you just had mentioned something really briefly that I think is really important, especially when we're talking about like just the emotional aspect of it. And so we all know that emotional spending is a coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're already at a place where you're super stressed out, like, and you're looking like, emotionally shopping, right? Like, I'm trying to feel better, so I'm going shopping. But
Right.
is that really going to make you feel better? And so I think you sometimes need to have really hard conversations with yourself
Mm-hmm.
about the coping mechanisms that you're using
Yeah.
in order to make yourself feel better. And a big, yes, exactly, retail therapy. And it makes you feel good in the moment. But if you're trying to reach a goal, um, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it.
No.
um, and it can kind of
Or
fill that gap.
you
But
that know that there's an account set for that. You know,
yes,
so if okay, I haven't treated myself in a while and I really want to go hang out, go to this new restaurant or whatever, this over here is what you have. You may be eating just appetizers instead of a full meal, but you got out of the house, you got it out of your system. You can still have the same enjoyment and fulfillment from it, but stay within your budget.
yeah, and I think that's what's so important about just having a different budget for different purposes.
Yes.
And I think and somebody just made a comment too about they budget everything, but when it comes to food and they're craving something, you just overspend.
Yeah.
And that's true. I mean, especially as a woman, like when the cravings come, especially like, and I have a 1 year old, so those pregnancy cravings are real.
Yeah.
And and so when you do want something, it's like you can eat other things, but it's not going to fulfill that craving.
Right.
And you tend to overspend. But if you have a separate budget or a line item or account for money, I mean for
Mm-hmm.
food, then are you really overspending?
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's important. It's almost like creating a backup plan for your own ADHD, right?
Exactly. It is. I mean, it really is.
Like,
Because
that you're going to be emotionally dysregulated. You know that you're going to be um, using some coping mechanisms that may not be the most effective, but if you can plan for it.
right. Right.
I like the idea of planning for,
For everything. People
yeah.
always think, oh, I got a vacation, I have this, I got a plan for that. I mean, but think about it. If you plan for the cruise that you're going to take a year from now, you're going to set this, you're going to figure out a way each particular month or whatever, however you're saving up for it, to set this money aside and don't touch it for that vacation. If you treat that in smaller increments for emotional breakdowns once a month, or trips out with the girls, or whatever, once a month or once every couple of weeks, if you get in that habit of separating things out like that, it does make it more easier.
Yeah.
You're going to have a bunch of different accounts, which is another thing. It's some people is, but that's too many accounts to figure out. But that's just the thing, you don't need to figure them all out. You just need to know when the going is there and it has to be done. You've already automated this money to this account, this account, this account. So now when I'm sitting at home and I'm having a moment, something happened at work, and I just need to get out and go and do something, maybe get my
Mm-hmm.
hair done, and whatever the case may be. You haven't done that in a couple of months. So now you have $400 or $500 in this account. You don't have anything to feel guilty about.
Yeah. I think the key is that automation. One is like setting up the different accounts that have different purposes, and then have money being automatically transferred there.
Right. Always. I
Yeah.
saw can't remember what it was, a YouTube video or something earlier, where it was like, if you have certain goals, of what your rich life would be. So you take a piece of paper and for ADHDers, there's a lot of different things, like, going back to the cleaning. I don't cook, I don't want to clean, I don't want to walk the dog, whatever the case may be, and how much it would cost for that particular person to be in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And then put money aside towards if it was that person. So if it was a chef that came in and that chef would charge you $100 a week or whatever the case may be, that would be an account that you have for that. It's the same thing kind of looking at for your budget. So that way your rich life in your mind may not be necessarily, thousands of dollars, dollar wise, but you're still separating those things to get what you want, where you are, to build, as you build forward, build up that for later as well.
Yeah. I think what's also was helpful for me too is that after I did all that, and then at the end of the pay period, before I got paid again, I would transfer everything over to savings that was left. So if there was money that I didn't spend that month, then it would just get transferred over at the end of the month. I do think budgeting looks a little different for entrepreneurs. I feel like now that I've entered this entrepreneurship space, and I don't know, are there entrepreneurs listening? Like when you think about budgeting, do you feel like it's different budgeting as an entrepreneur versus budgeting as a 9-to-5er?
Absolutely, it is. I just had a conversation the other day with there's a group of us, what we call kind of women in finance, who kind of work on that. But she said her exact same thing, and she was like, it's a different conversation from a 9-to-5er to an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, because even industry wide, they teach you for a 9-to-5er. They don't teach you for an entrepreneur, so to speak, when it comes to kind of helping with the financial plan. The dynamics are different because you think differently. Typically, entrepreneurs think differently than the regular 9-to-5er, because as an entrepreneur, you have to think more outside the box anyway, which you're probably more likely to have ADHD.
Yeah.
So where that is concerned, it's more, you need one more than anything, one as a financial advisor, to have a plan for everything, because now you have your everyday expenses for your life in your home, but this whole other scenario for your business.
You're managing multiple, not just multiple accounts, but accounts that have different purposes, and also 2 different cards. If you have an expense, if you have a business account versus a personal account, and trying to keep those finances separate, and then doing business taxes versus personal taxes, it can get really complicated really quickly. And I think that's really when it's helpful to have somebody to help support you with your finances, whether or not that's somebody doing your books. But it is, I think everybody in the chat that has been managing their own money as an entrepreneur, can agree, it is so hard.
Yeah.
It is hard, because then also with ADHD, not only do you just have the feelings about your experiences with your own personal life and managing money, but then also the unpredictability when it comes to the money that's going to be coming in for your company as an entrepreneur. Dr. Shauna just said the same thing. Yeah. So it's not as predictable. When you're 9-to-5, you're getting paid every 2 weeks. Absolutely. Or once a month. There's some predictability around it. But when it comes to being the entrepreneur life, there isn't, depending on what kind of business that you have. I would agree too, Dr. Shauna. It's when it comes to ADHD, it's out of control. It impacts your business negatively and can directly impact your regular budget. Absolutely. And because, if you don't, now you're you have to be on all the time when it comes to thinking about your business, right? You're playing all roles if you're a new entrepreneur,
right,
in your business. And if you don't feel like it that day, or if you feel like your ADHD is going haywire, and you feeling all the symptoms that particular day or that particular week, that can drastically impact your income.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
as a
That's the biggest thing.
yeah, as a business and your personal income, like can you pay your bills this month? And the stress that can come along with that can also stop you from like starting
Yeah.
because now you're stressed out. And so your stress is impacting everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's that's a whole nother conversation in itself. You know,
Uh,
right. And I was about to say a while ago I taught I still have a Facebook group for entrepreneurs trying to build credit just for their business. And that was
mhm.
the thing, like you can't I can't stress, you have to have that strict like budgeting. Like that's the only reason you see me out here doing cars or doing Amazon, and then I'm doing my consulting, and then I'm taking care of my dad, like because everything has a category. And I didn't think about it in the way of doing it that way. It was just in order for me to really handle my dad, it was like, okay, I got a book over here for this. Whoever come in the house, take care of my dad. These are the rules. Did you look at the book? Don't ask me no questions. You look at the book. That's probably the meanest, most, but but everything had a place, and that was probably the only way I was able to deal with some of the things I dealt with on the ADHD side too, because everything had a place. So even as the things that came up that would kind of take you there per se, it would just be going to that place. So when it
Yeah,
comes to even on the side of running the funds through your business, this business is suffering, but this business is a little more on the automated side. So whew, listen, I can't talk to you for a while, but this is going, or whatever the case may be. It's a lot of different, like that's what I said, it's a whole nother conversation in itself, but it's a
yeah.
lot of different
It's hard. It's hard dealing with finances as an entrepreneur, and then you find yourself like, are you avoiding the reality of your business? Like, then you have to kind of have, a lot of new businesses fail in the first couple of years, right? And so
yeah,
it's having an honest conversation about where is this money going to be coming from? Like, do you need to pivot? And really having those honest conversations about whether or not you're going to be able to cover all of your expenses to run the business.
right.
Um,
When to let
yeah,
go.
when to let go and all of the heartache that can come with that because like it's your baby, right? It's something that you
Yeah,
really worked really hard, but sometimes you can't avoid the reality of it. And that's the same thing with your personal finances too. Like you can't avoid the reality of the fact that you need to live and you need to eat, but you also may not be in a position where you can do all the things that you really want to do at that given time. And so, it's just, you kind of have to, learning, having an honest conversation about what it means to live in your means. And
yes,
also, what are your priorities when it comes to your finances? And if you don't know what your priorities are, take a look at your spending for the past 6 months.
right. And nowadays, no matter who you bank with, they can do that for you.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's not even where you have to go in and do so much. Once you hit one, or it automatically picks up as a restaurant, you can go right on in there and it'll tell you, this month is this month is that, and you can see it easier. Seeing is the best way to do it,
Yeah.
to make that, to make that change.
Yeah, if you don't understand what your values are or your priorities are in your life, your homework
Mm-hmm.
assignment is to take a look at the last 3 to 6 months of your spending, and that will tell you where your priorities are.
Right.
And then you can ask yourself, do you want to continue down that route? Or do you want to make a new decision?
Right.
Knowledge is okay. Like, throughout this entire month, we've been talking, the key word of this month, right, is awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have been talking about like being fully aware of how your ADHD is impacting your finances. Your life in general, but specifically now we're talking about your finances. And you have to kind of step back a little bit and have a like honest conversation with yourself. Like, okay, where have I been impulsively spending? What strategies do I need to put in place to help prevent the impulsive spending?
Right.
Um, what am I spending my money on, and is that okay with me? And it could be okay with you. But I remember some years ago, I did this exercise and I was like, oh my God, you know how much money I'm spending on food? And I'm in DC, so DC is super expensive when it comes to eating and buying groceries and eating out. It's ridiculous. And so I really had to have a hard conversation with myself. And I'm like, is this a priority for me? Is going and eating out often a priority? And what is going on with my life where I can't cook meals myself? And, then you start to have all the conversations about whether or not, like what we just had with the nutritionist last week, around all the executive functions that are required in order to make meals consistently and to make healthy meals if that's what you're looking to do. And so every strategy comes with its own different challenges.
Yeah.
But the reality is like you got to pick a strategy and you got to pick you got to pick a hard.
Yeah.
And long term, like money makes a really big difference. Like we're both in a position caring for a parent, and the financial decisions that they made when they were our age are now impacting us again.
That's another conversation too.
Yes. And so, and just thinking about we're at the age where really thinking about our finances makes a really big difference. Like how are we investing in our own health? How are we investing in our home? How are we investing in long-term investments that's going to be able to best support us when we're retired?
Because that's the thing.
And that's a lot of planning for somebody with ADHD.
Yes. And, I had those conversations. That was a blessing before I got to my dad was, my parents had me older. Matter of fact, my mom had me at 40. So my parents had me older. So I saw financial things younger. And then I got into the finance industry at the same time. And it's a whole new world when all you hear every day is people's financial questions, trauma, whatever their case may be. It takes a hold on everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's kind of where my passion was, just getting more in the education side, because there's a different way of doing different things, and there isn't one set structure for everyone. Not only for that, it's not one set structure for every specific goal you have in your financial on your financial path. So it's a deep dive, but it's definitely, it go your financial advisor, consultant, whatever you decide to go with. Your tax person is somebody that's going to be different too, especially if you wait till tax time to start talking about your financial problems. You're not going to get your best. Let's just say, I would say the best time to get some financial stuff out of your tax person is after, especially because they're probably going to have some business clients.
Yeah.
After October 15th to about mid-January. After that, you just focus on taxes. So it's always good to have somebody else in your back pocket, even if it's just a banker. Yeah, because one of the offices my last office that I worked in, I was independent. My partner was the tax person.
That's good to know. So the best time to reach out to your tax people are now.
Before
before the end of the year. So fourth quarter is the time to have some conversations with your tax person, with your financial advisor around some strategies, and really also a good time for you to kind of sit back and look at your money for the rest of the year, so then you can plan differently for the next year. But it's something that you definitely need to pay attention to. And so this hour went by fast. So, but thank you. Yeah. So thank you for coming on to kind of bring light to some of the challenges that we're experiencing as ADHDers when it comes to money and just managing our money and giving us some strategies. And, we talked a lot about a lot of things, but so thank you so much for taking your time to talk to me about this, because I think this is such an important topic because it literally impacts our entire life. And then we as ADHDers can find ourselves in a pickle because of us avoiding some of the conversations that we need to have about our money. And so I would tell everybody to really understand that money challenges is something that we all experience. And then if you're experiencing some guilt and some shame around it, to really address that, because avoiding it isn't going to be helpful. And there's resources out there to help better support you. And so please follow Tenita. If you have questions, reach out to her. She's a financial advisor. I want to thank you again for coming on board. And then everybody that is still listening, we are going to be doing some more group coaching through the month of November. I do have a coaching program coming out soon. And there's still some really good conversations happening for the rest of the week. So please tune in. I put the schedule on my Instagram page. And so if you haven't set an alarm, and I know that notifications and for ADHD is like not that great, but you can set a notification for me, and then you can turn it off at the end of the month. And so just make sure that you tune in. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.